But Cary and I are back with Talking Aloud, aka Chat in the Stacks, but we're not in the stacks anymore, so that doesn't feel quite so relevant. Um, but we're here to talk about a couple movies that are streaming on our Canopy service. You go to www.edwardsvillelibrary.org, and you go to ebooks and more. We have a streaming service called Canopy, and in addition to Canopy, we also have Hoopla, which also has movies, TV shows, and it does also have audiobooks and ebooks, which are great, but we're not talking about books today. We're talking about a couple movies. The first one being Party Girl. And that is one that I think once you go through library school and become a working librarian or a library employee, you hear about Party Girl because it's been around since the 90s, and it focuses a lot on public libraries. And then after I watched it, this is breaking the fourth wall a bit, talking to the audience, I texted Cary and said, maybe we should talk about something else in addition to this. So it just turns out that there's another film on Canopy that also has Parker Posey, that also is set largely in public libraries, which, like, what are the odds of that? So
yeah, who knew, right?
About Party Girl and Columbus. Party Girl's from, I should have had all the notes put out here. I have a couple of questions written down, but as far as the dates and everything, Party Girl, I think, was released in 93 or 94.
Yeah.
Columbus is a much more recent movie. I think that was 2017 or 2018. But yeah, let's get into Party Girl to start off now. I should say that when you're on Canopy, you're going to notice a real just disparity in quality across all these films. Now, when I watched Columbus, it looked great. It looked like you're watching something on HD Netflix. It looks awesome. When I watched Party Girl, it looks like a VHS rip. You know, did you think anything of that when you were watching it?
Well, I think that I think you definitely look at that stuff more than I do. I'm a more casual viewer, so I'm willing to watch blurry stuff half the time if I really want to see something. So I didn't pick up on that as much as you. I didn't mind the viewing experience I had. I watch Canopy and Hoopla through my Roku on my TV at home, and I didn't notice any big difference. But yeah, I missed Party Girl when it came out. I don't even know if it was on my radar. So I had heard of Parker Posey, of course, but I hadn't watched this movie. I didn't even know about that iconic library scene until I saw it at a library conference. I guess there's a couple scenes in that movie that kind of typify the funny parts of working in a library. So that's what really brought it to my attention. And then when you asked me to watch it, yeah, I didn't know what to expect at all. So I thought that, if you want to know what I think about the difference between the library setting in each movie, Party Girl's definitely got some stereotypical parts. The head librarian's a certain caricature. Like you said, the grad student who is underpaid and overqualified for his beginning level spot at the library is kind of funny for those of us who get our degree. But actually, it's really well played. That secondary character, it is Rory Culkin, right? And
we're talking about Columbus right now. Yeah, Rory Culkin.
That's right. He's in the other one. Sorry, but I thought the most interesting part of the whole thing with her was there's so many parts of her life that are actually serious. It almost reminded me of a modern day Breakfast at Tiffany's kind of thing, where you've got this girl who's living this kind of flippant life and partying around, doesn't really know what to do with herself or doesn't want to become serious, but she's underrated by the people around her and she's tired of it. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. We use the phrase a lot now, adulting, or that's not a phrase, it's a term. We throw adulting out a lot now, but what you have here is someone who, I don't think they ever state her age, but you're allowed to assume that she's probably someone who should have, at the age where they would have graduated from college. She doesn't quite know what she wants to do. She loves partying. She's a social butterfly in New York, and it really captures a New York party scene.
Yeah.
And
And also
that's
various people who have to live together to afford living there at all. So you get this motley crew of people that are all kind of living it together and switching where they live. And
yeah. So like what we have, because this is kind of adulting, we're looking at an adult coming of age where, I guess it's interesting how librarianship is always more just this symbol of either maturity or settling down, I guess, because librarians are just boring and
it's considered compared to party. Fashion design. It's considered a staid conservative thing, but we know that it isn't that way. But yeah, it definitely would seem to be the boring alternative to these 20-somethings lifestyle in New York.
Yeah, so I think just her, leaving her party scene behind and doubling down on librarianship and becoming serious. It's really funny. It definitely falls in the pantheon of library depictions that are just poking fun of librarianship or being humorous because, it's not quite as extreme as Parks and Rec. You see libraries depicted in that show. But we definitely poke fun on a number of things. What I thought was the funniest, and I do see this in real library world, is how many people that are librarians that have a Master in Library Science degree really don't let someone use the term librarian unless they have an MLS. And that's in this movie.
It is in this movie.
25 years ago. It's just so funny.
Yeah.
And
I would have to say that I'm not one of those librarians, but I always thought that was funny. I figure, hey, I understand the whole degree thing, but
yeah, there's also librarians that we know that didn't get an MLS. You can come to this from a number of different angles. So anyone that ends up watching this that wants to know a path to librarianship, there's no one path. You can go through business, you can go through, I think someone asked me recently what they should get their undergrad degree and if they want to go into librarianship. And I was like, get a foreign language undergrad degree, go into Spanish, go into French, German, whatever.
Right, I think we all have different undergrads. I'm pretty sure a lot of us do.
But we know libraries that are hiring people that aren't MLS graduates. We know a couple of people very well that they're running libraries that, they came from different specialties.
I said that this movie surprised me. The biggest surprise of this movie was, at first I was just going to pigeonhole it as a comedy with her being kind of silly and, shallowly running around, partying all the time. But then it's got her background with her mother, and she's constantly getting told what her mother was like, and she's like, her mother is since gone or passed away. And she's got this looming over her head with her guardian of how much her mother couldn't keep things organized, and she's just like her mother. And there's a lot of parts in it that are kind of poignantly serious in the mix of all of this. And I thought her main story was what was interesting more than all what's going on around her and how she changes over time, and without getting too melodramatic or serious.
I think this movie does bog a little bit down in all those other things, though. I don't know if her romantic angle is all that important. I don't know if at the end of the day her social stuff is, I guess we're trying to show her growth. But it is interesting, she takes this job because it was handed to her by her guardian because, she has no other prospects. But she takes this field that she comes into is just almost mocking, and then she really understands and embraces what that profession is all about. And then
right. I think you learn that she's actually bright, and when she does need to answer a question, she has an innate sense of how, some research skills, and so that's why what you said before, a lot of people could be really good at this job if they have the right sense of curiosity and determination. So
I said at the top of this, Party Girl, once I finally watched it, because when I asked you to watch it, I hadn't watched it myself yet, and so we both watched it for the first time very recently. I don't know if I could really wholeheartedly recommend it. Give it a shot if you're really curious about New York City librarianship. If you're really curious about the party scene in Parker Posey in the 90s, watch it. But I think what we're going to talk about now is a much better movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So Columbus, It also has Parker Posey. She's definitely she's a side character. She's not a star of this film.
Almost 20 years, 20
yeah,
years later.
More than 20 years later.
So character.
Yeah, Columbus. There is a lot of it that takes place in a public library, so this is our connection to it. I don't think we need much excuse at all to talk about something like this. It's also more important to say both these movies are on Canopy. Use Canopy, watch movies on us with your library card. www.edwardsvillelibrary.org. Click on eBooks More. Click on Canopy. You can also download the app on Apple TV, Roku, all that stuff, and on your phone or tablet. So yeah, there's a lot going on with Columbus. There's we have our main character, Jin Lee, and then, or I guess Casey would be the main character, the female role played by Haley Lou Richardson. And then we've got Jin Lee, who I can't really tell whose story we're seeing more of, but.
Right, you get the impression that it's her story, but he's playing such an integral role as being he's like her catalyst for figuring stuff out. And, and vice versa, almost.
There's a couple movies, like specifically, this guy is Korean, and his father is Korean, who, not to spoil anything, but his father has a very serious health issue that happens in the first minute of the movie, and that's why this man from Seoul, Korea, comes to, the movie is mostly in English. I know Cary had an issue where she thought it was all going to be in subtitles. She didn't realize that Parker Posey can speak in a foreign language at the beginning of this movie.
Yeah, it's very easy to understand.
Anyway, it's mostly in English, but we have John Cho's character, Jin Lee, come to this town, and I don't know what else to say other than, both he and Haley Lee Richardson, they are characters that are in this little town in Indiana, and both of their lives are on hold. And it reminded me, I started talking about a Korean movie. I can't remember what it was called, Il Mare, but they remade it into a Keanu Reeves movie where you have these two different people that were like a year apart in time, and they put stuff in a mailbox, and they were talking to each other. That's what it feels like to this. There's a very, I don't want to spoil anything, but let's just call it a platonic relationship between Jin Lee and Casey. Their age difference is probably at least 15 plus years, but they're in a very similar circumstance. Jin Lee definitely he's in a career that didn't live up to what his father's expectations were about.
Well, let's say that his father's an extremely famous, is he a famous architect or a famous writer about architects?
I think he's a famous architect.
Yeah. So he's world known, and his son has that to live under. His father's looming, fame and personality.
Well, it's not only that, but also he's very immediately stuck because his father is, comatose in this small Indiana town because he was just visiting to give a speech, and then, Jin Lee rushed to this town to kind of be a caretaker or manage everything that's going on.
But not because they're close.
Right, because he's next to
an obligation.
Right.
And then she's got her mother to worry about.
Right, and that's a situation where Haley Lou Richardson, being probably 18 years old or so, I don't remember if she said, maybe she's 20, but she's definitely the more responsible person in the dynamic between she and her mother. She cooks the meals, she kind of looks out for her mother and her mother's safety. We just have a movie with the relationship between these two. What did you think of, and we've already kind of talked about it, what did you think of the relationship between Jin Lee and Casey?
Well, it's when you hear, I always have a reaction when I see a movie called one word, like Columbus. You're like, well, what? There's nothing about that name that sparks my interest. So I never know what to expect. And the relationship of two strangers who just cross paths at a very crucial moment in their lives, and how without a lot of immediate interaction or attraction, they actually talk almost easier to each other, strangers, than they could talk to other people they know better. It's just like they appear to each other at the right time in their lives to be able to share a little bit of personal details that they don't feel comfortable with anybody else. And they help each other and by talking about architecture. His father and his father's focus, but his unwillingness to go down that path. And she has a great interest in architecture, and because she grew up in this town in Indiana that's known for famous architecture from the 50s and 60s. And you hear her with a monologue where she's giving tours, and she just has self-taught all about these buildings, and she uses them almost as a soothing balm when she's going through rough times with her mom. She'll go sit and look at her favorite one, and she's got them all ranked. And so they both kind of open each other's eyes to parent-child relationships and what architecture means to humans. You know, it goes in a lot of depth of feeling without it being, you know, dramatic. It's very, what it was the word you used? It's not low key, but, you know, they don't get all, you know, personal or dramatic or about it. They talk very casually and dry about these very serious topics.
I think I just used the word matter of fact in regards to the way Jin Lee, John Cho's character, addresses a pretty serious question that he has for Casey. And I think that's kind of a culminating moment in the relationship when they're really kind of getting to the core of each other's issues, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was interesting when you said that she's self-taught for this architecture stuff in this town. Did you pick up on the fact that when she starts talking about this particular building, I think it was the library, she is word for word mimicking what the tour guide was saying earlier in the movie? Like she's just falling in. I mean, it's kind of like instead of living up to a father like John Cho's character was, she's living up to like the town. Like the town's all about architecture. I should just regurgitate the things I already heard about these pieces. I mean, not to say that her motivations are questionable and she shouldn't go into architecture, but it's interesting that she's only repeating what she's heard verbatim from people around her saying.
But I think she's convinced herself that she can't ever leave. She'll always have to take care of her mom. So she's kind of living vicariously through the tour guide she hears, and she's just kind of almost fantasizing, you know, about how she could do that, and, you know, if she would have had the chance. So she just uses that as a substitute for actually living.
So I should say, to kind of like give people a visual while they're hearing us, rather than the visual they're looking at our face. And so here, Columbus, the movie, is set in a real town called Columbus, Indiana, and it was recorded or filmed in this town. And go look it up. Columbus, Indiana was a town that commissioned a lot of very noteworthy, renowned architects to design a lot of just city buildings and libraries and other stuff, to where all of I mean, this movie is gorgeous to look at. It's gorgeously filmed, and it really captures all of these buildings and the bridge and all this architecture. It's beautifully captured in this movie, and I don't know what this movie would be like. I mean, how do you think this movie would work if it were filmed in, you know, some flat town with no architecture note?
I mean, I don't think it would work at all, because he doesn't understand. The male character has chosen not to get too far into architecture, almost despite his father. And he doesn't really want to know, and he acts like he doesn't really care, and he doesn't really think it affects humans. And at the end, you know, we call it trendy now, mid-century modern, but mid-century modern is what this is. And yeah, without the architecture and what it does, she, on the other hand, romanticizes the whole thing and throws herself into it, like I said, in a fantasy. And she, you know, she makes it feel like it changes her whole life. It's the only thing keeping her going. You know, so you've got these two extremes, people, and they start showing each other the other sides of their lives, and it kind of brings them together to this kind of similar feeling at the end, you know, that helps them both.
Yeah, I mean, by the time I got to the end, I really think that having all this gorgeous architecture around them really almost made everything a little bit more melancholy. It's like there's a permanence of these buildings. These buildings are maybe from mid-century modern, you know, 60s, whatever, and they still look as beautiful as they did. And it's like this feeling you know, we're going to sound like Wayne and Garth from Wayne's World. It's like, man, we're all just the specks in the wind, man.
Right.
But, you know, all of our little human issues that we're going through, you know, will be old and ugly and gone. And then meanwhile, these buildings will continue to stand, they'll continue to be beautiful, and they'll just take up the space, and then we'll be shuffled off and someone else will be in our place.
Well, you know, it almost reminds you of the architecture that really stands the test of time, you might say, are almost like giant oak trees. I mean, they pretty much just stand solid against the wind, the rain, the disasters, and they're kind of there as guardians, and they overview the human rat race, you know. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So Columbus, there is stuff in public libraries. It definitely isn't quite the focus as it was. I just wanted to say it all felt a lot more realistic as far as how a library looks and works today, except the fact that Rory Culkin of the famous Culkin family, he actually had a really crazy movie called Lords of Chaos recently. That's on Canopy right now too. But he's an MLS and you know, he has a grad degree. Surely he's a higher paid employee, and he's just out there shoving books like really slowly, just taking his own time, just putting one book up, and they're just chatting. That part felt unrealistic for someone who works. I mean, maybe their library's like that. Maybe
you almost feel like he's just kind of, you know, gliding without a lot of motivation, and she, without the degree, would have more motivation if she thought she wasn't trapped. I think she's, you know. And luckily she finds her way. We won't say how.
Right, yeah. He would be someone who helps her just stick with the same thing she's been doing and stay stuck. And he, even though he seems cool, he's still just...
He's another, like, reliable thing that's going to stay in that town, right? Yeah, but I think Parker Posey's role in this was, you know, the fact that she's in both movies. And, you know, my only experience with her, was Tom Hanks's girlfriend Patricia in You've Got Mail. And so,
wow, yeah.
So for anybody who's seen that movie, which I see once a year because I love that movie, you know, she has that great scene in the elevator where she freaks out and he decides right then and there he's done with her, you know. Yeah. And she's really good at that high maintenance, high strung. She does that really well. But she managed to be, role was very mature and much different. So it seems like she has a wide range. I don't know why she's not in more things.
Well, the best stuff that she's in, and these aren't on Canopy yet. We do have these on DVD, or we did it one time. Hopefully Edwardsville Library still has. Best in Show is a.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those Christopher Guest mockumentaries. This Best in Show is it's a spoof on the Westminster dog show. She plays one of the, you know, the dog owners that's showing I forget which dog that she has, but it's hilarious. She's funny in that. She's funny in, I think she's in A Mighty Wind, also by Christopher Guest. But yeah, when you talk about her being manic and whatever else in that You've Got Mail, she definitely was like one of the proto, you ever heard the term manic pixie dream girl?
Yeah, that's definitely.
That's what she was in the 80s before that was such a thing, before.
When she was doing that in Party Girl, for sure. I mean, yeah, she has that one scene in Party Girl where she's dancing and flailing around. I mean, it's great that she's able to do that, you know. Yeah, I thought Columbus was really good. That's one thing you find, especially on Canopy. If you're just clicking through Canopy on a day off and you don't know what you want to watch, I think that there's pretty high quality on almost everything you can choose, where you're kind of like, you know, I would give Columbus a lot of stars. I thought it was really good. And, you know, I don't think it was in the theaters long or, you know, certainly wasn't any kind of blockbuster, but it was really good.
Yeah, it was not a wide release. It was one of those movies where to watch it, you would have had to have gone to Plaza Frontenac or maybe the Tivoli. So we alluded to this last time about how, you know, someone like me, I'm always reading blogs, listening to podcasts about films. Columbus was one. There's a podcast that's made out of, I think, WBEZ Chicago called Film Spotting. They have this an award every year called the Golden Brick. So the Golden Brick is their kind of, not anti-Oscar, but it's basically a film that they really enjoyed that did not get any nominations for Best Pictures anywhere else that they saw. It's kind of like your sleeper hit of the year.
Yeah,
and, Columbus was one of the nominees. Maybe it won the year that it came out. So it got on my radar then. I've been meaning to watch it since then, and now on Canopy we finally sat down and at least I sat down and watched this and Party Girl. Definitely go watch Columbus.
Yeah, definitely.
Party Girl if you're desperate and bored.
I wouldn't say that bad. I kind of, aside from the unneeded side romance that I didn't think was necessary, I thought it was a good movie for a stay-in rainy day.
Yeah.
It was funny.
It is funny. It is Parker Posey. A lot of her if you are in a Parker Posey mood. And you can't make it to the library to check out Best in the Show. Or she's also fun in Dazed and Confused, if you remember that. She was one of the bullies.
I think I do. Yeah, well, you'll have to stay tuned to see which cool movie Jacob finds off of Canopy and Hoopla.
There's always something on Canopy coming up. You can go to recently added, and also on Hoopla. When you go to new releases, you can filter things by the date it was added to Hoopla, and sometimes I go there just to see what's been added in the last 7 days, last 30 days, because there's always something new coming up. I can't remember what the contract was or what the details were, but Hoopla just got, I think it was Paramount. All these Paramount movies came there, so go take a look at that. There's probably, of all genres, tons of different films that are definitely worth the time to sit down and watch.
Yeah.
So, as I said, with Canopy, you can load that on your Apple TV or Roku or whatever else you have. I'm sure Kindle Fire has that as well. I know they have Hoopla on there. Hoopla is also on Apple TV and Roku.
I would say on Canopy again that the quality of shows is a cut above. I mean, I have Netflix and Hulu and other shows I subscribe to, and half the time I don't think that percentage wise there's nearly as good of quality. So yeah, I think Canopy's totally worth trying out, especially so if you haven't given our digital resources a try, now's the great time. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Otherwise, just a reminder, the library is open. I don't know, we're not wearing masks now, but after we get out of our little rooms that we're in, we'll definitely have our masks. We're covering our nose and our mouth. The entire time we're here, we're asking that you do the same, and we are enforcing our mask rules. So wear a mask and cover your nose and your mouth.
That's right.
Yeah. Any other comments, Cary?
No, I don't think so. I'm ready to. We'll Jacob and I will, and some of our other coworkers will keep reading and keep watching so we can share with you.
Yeah, I should read a book someday, shouldn't I? Watching movies and asking everyone else about books.
Yeah.
At the end of all this, I'm going to ask all of my coworkers to tell me what book I should read. I'm going to read one book in 2020, and that'll be the one thing, and I'll report back after I've weighed all my options.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining me. Thank you, everyone that wants to watch this now or later. If you do ask comments after this has gone live, just leave them in the comments, and one of us will check back on that if you have.
And this is also saved on YouTube?
It will end up on YouTube, yes. I don't know if comments are blocked or disabled there. We will answer comments that are in our Facebook. So
all right.
Communicate with us right there.
All right. Have a great day. See you next time.
All right. Take care. Goodbye. Bye.